Hi folks, it's psychic medium Josh Simons coming to anyone watching this with my weekly Monday message. I didn't bring one to folks last week because I was on vacation, and we have to take vacations and those breaks when necessary. I was also in a place with funny service and what have you. This week I have what I feel is a very beautiful Monday message in terms of some things that I've experienced recently that I'd like to share with everybody here. First, we should just pause for a moment and just acknowledge and make space for the fact that the time that we're in, collectively speaking, everybody is really damn stressful, right? And some of us manage that stress in different ways. Some of us manage it in healthy ways and unhealthy ways. But it is very stressful, no matter how you're working through it. We have the pandemic that's been with us for a long time. We have evolving variations of viruses. We have vaccine deniers, people that are afraid of vaccines. I just had an experience where one of my friends has fallen out of favor, if you will, or association with another one of my friends because of vaccine stuff, and that's tough to see, right? When we are all suffering, because we are all suffering, generally speaking, we should be coming together instead of finding reasons to separate. That's not hokey, new age stuff. That's just a fact that community and friends help us get through times of adversity. They do. Our family, our friends, our community help us. We also have humanitarian crises. We see earthquakes in Haiti. We see this stuff happening in Afghanistan. We see wildfires. I mean, if you pay attention to national media, whatever your relationship with that is, it's tough to not feel overwhelmed by all the stuff that's happening in our world, right? Temperatures are going up. It's raining in places where it's never rained before. Really strange things are happening. And it really feels like those things are, happening faster and faster, right? Or maybe it's just in the time that we're in and how focused media is on crises, right? Regardless, what we must do in times like this, and this is where the wisdom of our ancestors really helps us, what we must do in times like this is just put our nose to the grindstone and focus on the things that we can affect, right? The things that we can lay our hands on. With people that pass away, or for instance, if you take somebody that survived like a plane crash and everybody on the plane passed away except for that person could have survivor's guilt, right? And that survivor's guilt, I should have passed away with them, what have you. I feel something very similar to that in the way that my life is pretty wonderful. I have lots of blessings of healthy family, career, spiritual engagement, all of this stuff. And yet I don't see it in the rest of the world. And I feel bad because things are going well for me. And it doesn't seem like that's the case for a lot of people. And all I can do in these times of adversity is maintain perspective on what I can actually change and affect, and understand what I can't change and affect. There's just a beautiful crow flying right there. All of them going up and down the river. Maybe you'll see them. No, it doesn't look like the video will get them. Anyways, maybe right there. There you go. I maintain focus on my life, right? My family, my relationships, my businesses, my career, my efforts, my projects, my goals, my aspirations. And in that way, I try to stem the tide of all of this horrible stuff, right? Where I don't let the tide of horrible stuff that's happening affect me greatly. And I do my best to maintain focus on goals, aspirations in my community. How can I make a change, and how can I put my hands on stuff in my immediate vicinity and not get overwhelmed by the things that I can't put my hands on and change, right? Well, it is awful that there are these massive forest fires. I also have to be in skillful relation with my emotions around that scenario, right? Because it is awful, but I have to maintain a relationship with that emotion so it doesn't affect my day-to-day well-being. And that's just kind of being practical with our emotions and the life situations as they come upon us. Really, all that is maintaining perspective as to where we're at in our life, in our immediate community and vicinity, and where we're at in relation to these crises that are happening on a global and national scale. Absolutely. And maintaining perspective is something that's very difficult to do when we experience trauma, right? And when we have trauma, no matter what it is, whether it's abuse or just bullying in school or anything in our life, right, that causes us pain and trauma, suffering in that way, it's going to affect our way of looking at things. I want to tell you a story that just happened to me very recently, and it's one that was very funny to me because I'll share it with you. When I do readings, when I sit down with people, I will get my space ready. I'll have candles lit, I'll have incense lit, right? I'll be getting into that space, and the person that I'm waiting to see will be right on the other side of the door. I'll feel their spirits. All their spirits will come to me and relay information to me, and it's pretty funny. So yesterday, there was this woman who was coming in for my first session of the day. I hadn't seen her yet, hadn't laid my eyes physically on her yet, and meanwhile, I'm in the room, and her mom is with me. Her mom is talking to me, and she goes, my daughter, she's done so much to help our family, her family, that her name should be on a plaque. That was a very specific description. I'm like, name on a plaque, okay. Well, recognition, whose names you put on plaques, people that you want to recognize, right? So I have this message for her, and I sit down with her, and she's an older woman, a grandmother, and she's very strong, been through a lot, And I explain it to her, and I tell her exactly what happened. I say, before, you're out in our space, out in the store, and I'm in my studio space, and your spirits are talking to me. And not only was I receiving this information, and the interesting way that I did it is I had to tell her not who the information was coming from, because she would have had an issue with that. She had a funny relationship with her mom. And this information was very much coming from her mother. So I had to demonstrate to her that the spirits around her at first thought she was a commendable human being, thought her name should be on a plaque, all of that. And she, of course, humble and modest, scoffed it all off. Oh no, not me. And I had to disagree with her, right? Because what I do when I'm receiving information from spirits, emotional states from spirits, those types of things, I relay that to the person that I'm with. And if that person is like, no, I take that into consideration. I'm like, okay, maybe the information that I'm receiving isn't accurate, right? And time to time that happens. But this time I was like, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're not seeing it correctly. You're not seeing it correctly. You have done commendable things for your family. And because those things are as natural as breathing to you, you don't see those things, you don't see those as things to be commended for, right? For instance, I have had, I had full custody of my son since he was in the 6th grade due to life stuff that happened on the other side of his life. And everybody seemed to be like, oh, Josh, you're such a great dad for stepping in and taking care of your kid. And, on the inside, I was like, I'm not. I'm just a dad. To be a father to my son is as natural as breathing to me. So I understood where this woman was coming from, right? Because somebody was saying, oh, great job being a dad. I'm like, no, that's just like breathing and walking. It's just something that you're going to do. Then I had to tell this woman that the information came from her mother. And most of our session was like, hey, you're not seeing things clearly. You've gone through some really awful things in life, and you've persevered, and you've persevered, and you've persevered. You're not seeing things clearly. And she wasn't at all. She had a different version of herself in her mind. And she had these stories that were playing out in her mind about herself and how she'd walked through life that weren't accurate. Because her spirits, and especially her mother, was very proud of her for handling the worst things that humans could handle and doing so with grace and strength. And that's a wonderful story that I love to share here right now, because we all have these awful things that we're all dealing with. Some of them are global, some of them are national, some of them are local, some of them are personal, some of them are in our family, some of them are in our workspaces. I work with not only the dead and the ancestors, but I do work with a set of spirits that are not human. Spirits that, if they were human, they haven't been human for a long time. And we're talking like the angels and the gods, right? And that's, again, my own personal stuff. But I will tell you that my relationship with the ancestors and the dead and these greater spirits, they all agree about one thing. The most beautiful part of humanity is our ability to persevere in the face of adversity. That when we have struggles and pains and problems and challenges and issues and obstacles and all of these things in our life, the most beautiful thing about humanity is how we move around them, get through them, get over them, persevere, invent, come up with things, all of those things. Doing that, right, handling our obstacles, our challenges, our issues, all of those things, it's easier when we're mindful of the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves, right? And I'm very grateful that my relationship with Spirit has helped me do that in the way that it has helped me see my stories better. The things that have happened to me and the things that are going on in the world around me, I have not asked for and I don't deserve. And I do have some skin in the game. I do have roles I play here in this world. But when the forests are burning and refugees are marching across deserts and viruses are filling hospitals, I understand that those things, while horrible, are not my fault. And that what I can do is what I can do, right? Those stories that we tell ourselves are very important, and they help us when we're in correct relation to them. They help us manage our existence. So if you're convinced that you're an awful human being, and you don't deserve love and you don't deserve happiness because of the traumas that have convinced you of those stories, you're going to have a really hard time in this world. People who are in right relation to their stories still have a hard time in this world. Forests are burning, countries are crumbling, viruses are running rampant. And just like that woman I sat with, I would ask you to sit with your story. You can do it like this. Here's a little thought exercise for you to help you see yourself and your story with a little bit more clarity. I want you to imagine that you have a daughter or a son or a loved one or a brother or a sister or a best friend or anybody that you would care for deeply. And I'd ask that you'd sit with that and ask yourself, if they had your life, if they'd gone through everything that you've gone through, handed the life that you were handed, turned it into what you turned it into, would you be proud of that child? Now, personally, I understand where I was born, what kind of culture, what kind of family I was born into. I understand that I was born a homosexual. I understand that in that culture is going to be tough, and I had to learn about those things. And for all of the things that I was handed in this world, for all the cards I was dealt, I still played a role in how I managed those. I would be proud of my son if he had my life. I hope that you would be proud of your child if they had done the things that you've done. If you are a person whose compass is love and balance and peace, and you're not perpetuating those things in the lives of others, you should be telling yourself the right kind of story in your head about yourself. And when you get around to that, The world, as awful and as hectic as it is, becomes a little bit more beautiful because you're paying attention to the beauty that's within you instead of the traumas and the stories that they have convinced you were real. That's my Monday message to you. Please be in right relation with your stories. Please be telling yourself the right stories in your mind. And do your best to persevere through all the adversity that we're handed. It's all we can do, right? It's all we can do. Take care of yourself. Appreciate the opportunity to do this. And as always, I love your feedback and love hearing if this connects to you in any way. So take care of yourself, be well, and I'll see you on the interwebs.